So after the extremely disappointing performance the Scorpion MGL had against the Curado K out on the water, I didn't even really want to do this battle anymore, but since I said I was going to do it, here we go. Now this is going to be the battle between the Scorpion MGL against the Curado DC. Now the last time a DC reel went up against an MGL reel was when the mighty METANIUM DC went up against the even mightier METANIUM MGL and lost. And this time around, we're just going to be throwing the 1/2 ounce casting plug just to let these reels really stretch their legs and see what they can do. So let's get out on the field and see what happens. Okay guys, as you can see, I threw in a last minute surprise and included the Curado K in the battle. Now, I only threw the 1/4 ounce casting plug for the Curado K versus the Scorpion MGL battle due to time constraints. But before we get into these results, I'm going to go ahead and throw up a graphic on the spool weights of all three of these reels when completely filled with 10-pound mono. Okay, so let's get to the Curado K versus Scorpion MGL rematch of sorts. Now, out on the water throwing a couple of different lures. In my opinion, they were virtually even. So what happened out on the field throwing the 1/4 ounce casting plug? Now it turns out that big advantage in spool weight paid dividends for the Scorpion MGL, as it handily beat the Curado K in this test. Now the Curado K averaged a really respectable 148.4 feet, so that's almost a 50-yard average. And in my opinion, you know, any reel that can average over 50 yards with a 1/4 ounce plug is elite. So the Curado K is almost elite. Now the Scorpion MGL apparently is elite, as it averaged a really surprising 163.6 feet. And this was on a rod that did not really load up that 1/4 ounce casting plug. I was using a 6'6" medium heavy that was rated from 3/8 all the way to 1 ounce. And you could tell because when the Curado K was casting the plug, the spool was so heavy and the rod didn't really even load up the plug that it affected the release point on the Curado K, and I had to adjust that. And also I could tell immediately when coming from the MGL to the K that the K casted smoother and it was quieter, and that's because the spool was really a lot slower. I could look down and could tell that the spool was not spinning nearly as fast as that Scorpion spool. So the Scorpion makes up for its humiliating performance out on the water against the K, and definitely kills it in the 1/4 ounce casting plug for bragging rights. Alright, so let's talk about the main event, and that is the MGL versus the mighty Curado DC. Okay, so just wanted to let you guys know that in order to access the lowest brake setting on the Curado DC, I had to set the spool tension tight enough to where when the plug hit the ground there was a minor backlash, and even still, you know, there was some overrun in the Curado DC's cast. So that being said, that did not help it beat out the Scorpion MGL. Now the Curado DC averaged 211.6 feet, while the MGL averaged 213.6 feet, so a very, very narrow margin. You're looking at a 2-foot difference between the two, and that was on the strength of a 229-foot bomb that it dropped on its very first cast. And I listened to that cast several times to hear if there was any kind of extra wind, and there really wasn't, so I had to include that cast in the results. That helped it beat out the Curado DC. But the DC was definitely more consistent, and that is the trait of all DC reels: consistently long casts. Okay, so let's talk about this Scorpion now. So I've come to the conclusion that the Scorpion is what I call a deceptively good caster, meaning that when you're casting it, you're not really wowed by the spool speed, because it's definitely the slowest MGL reel out there as far as spool speed, but it gets the job done when it comes to distance. So when you're casting this thing, it doesn't give you that excitement of, you know, thinking the spool's about to blow up in your face that you get with like a ALDEBARAN MGL or a METANIUM or the CASITAS MGL or even the Bantam. So that's what really deceived me. But as it stands, the Scorpion MGL killed these Curados. Okay guys, thanks a lot.